Beautiful. Okay, they passed. That was the January 19th. I'd like a motion to approve the December 21st. I think those weren't, they were just comments, or did I get that backwards? We had a meeting without a quorum. That was the January. So we passed the December 21st meeting. The January 19th meeting, we're just passing comments. We don't have to pass that. We did not have a quorum. We just had a discussion. So we move on to old business. And at this juncture, we're going to hear from Charles Brown at the Central Connecticut Health District. Thank you, Charlie, for jumping ahead for us on this.
No problem. So I'm going to read into the record some questions from Krista Mariner from 58 Farms Village Road in Rocky Hill. So she had some questions for me of CCHD. First, what are the current counts for Rocky Hill, including fatalities? I'm going to answer these one by one. So current counts for Rocky Hill, total cases of COVID-19 at this point are 1,447. Total deaths equals 115. Next question that she had was, are you concerned by the variants and is genetic sequencing widespread? And I will say very succinctly, yes, I am concerned, and no, genetic sequencing is not widespread, and that is the reason why I'm concerned. There is a lot of testing going on to determine cases. There is very limited capability at this point for genetic sequencing. I believe there are only 5 labs in the entire state right now that can do sequencing, and not every test does get sequenced. So, you know, as they find more variants or more cases along these lines, we'll have to see what happens with respect to that. Third question was, our first vaccine clinic is in Rocky Hill, is on this Saturday on February 20th, and that is correct. We are targeting very hard to reach 75 and above folks that had transportation issues. We worked with Senior and Center and Social Services to be able to fill the slots that we had. We're only doing 50 doses this first clinic, but we're going to be expanding to additional opportunities here as we move forward. So do you anticipate additional clinics in town as eligibility expands? Yes, we do. We are also looking at the possibility of doing a large mass vaccination clinic potentially at the Berlin Fairgrounds, but that probably will not be until late March, mid-April at the earliest. Probably April is if you're a Benton person. Fourth, she's finding a surprising reluctance in speaking to people about the vaccine. From my point of view, please explain the necessity for getting the vaccine. Well, the reason why, first and foremost, to get this particular vaccine, especially if you're within one of the targeted risk groups, is that it does have very good protection from this particular virus. So being able to protect yourself means that you're not going to go to the hospital. You're not going to hopefully, pass away as a result of contracting this particular disease. So everybody that has the opportunity, please take the opportunity to get vaccinated when it becomes your turn, until it becomes your turn, and even after you're vaccinated. Make sure that you're doing those 3 W's, wearing a mask, watching our distance, and washing our hands. That keeps everybody protected as well. So I hope I answered those questions sufficiently and succinctly, and I'll turn it back over to you, Ed, and stand ready to answer any more questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Any questions from Pankaj Prakash, Councillor Prakash?
You're muted, sir.
Not at this time. Thank you.
Any questions from Councillor Emmanuel?
No, thank you, Ed. Thanks, Charlie.
Ed, could I just ask one brief question?
Sure, absolutely.
Good evening, Charlie. Hey, are we all set for the clinic on Saturday?
I believe so. My office, Jonathan Butler, and everybody's worked all to make sure that that's all set up and ready to rock and roll. So we've got the clinic spaces filled, should have the vaccine, should be ready to have everything set up there. So for those people that are scheduled for that clinic, we are good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, we're moving over to new business, and our state representative, Kerry Wood, is here to speak to us this evening. Charlie, you're leaving?
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
You're signing off? Oh,
Yeah,
all
I'm
right.
signing off.
Thank you. Travel
All right.
safe.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, can you hear me okay? Great. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chief Custer, Chief Garahay, Town Manager, Mayor, members of the committee, and members of the public. Thank you for having me here today. I wanted to have this meeting and be in front of you to address the rising car theft and property theft issue here in town, and talk with you about what I can do as your state representative, and hopefully continue to work together and maybe do so in a more cohesive way to address this concern. The first thing that I can do as a state representative is write legislation, and I have proposed HB 6264, which strengthens penalties for juveniles who are repeat offenders. And it also strengthens penalties for adults who facilitate juveniles who are doing this, and also it would charge them with a risk of injury to a minor. And what we're seeing is a lot of people in their 19, 20 plus year old understanding the laws and having younger individuals perform the car thefts and break-ins. So yeah, again, working with law enforcement, working with our state police, that was something that we hadn't seen brought up before that we thought would help alleviate this. The third part of the bill gives law enforcement an additional tool using the CORA Act to further investigate if there's organized crime or gang activity with a lot of this uptick. And the fourth part of the bill establishes a task force to see if any of these juvenile treatment facilities and programs are actually working. And for example, I was speaking to a police officer the other day that had arrested a juvenile, I think for the fourth time. And I asked what the rehabilitation was for that individual. And the rehabilitation was a driver training course. So I think that we need to review what the rehabilitation is for some of these crimes, because I think we could all agree that driver training is not something sufficient to deter this activity. The second thing I can do is facilitate interactions with the state. And I did have a discussion with the Commissioner of Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection. His name is Commissioner James Ravella. He oversees state police and military department. And we can, as a town, coordinate on a regional basis and ask for his office to assist and provide additional resources. I have spoken to Gary Evans, who's the town manager from Wethersfield, on one of our recent calls, and Gary would be a person to facilitate this if we would like to coordinate with our central Connecticut towns and approach Commissioner Ravella's office. The third thing I can do is bring bonding dollars back to Rocky Hill, or talk to the Department of Emergency Services regarding grants or equipment that can better help our police department. And would love to have that discussion with you if there are needs, tools, additional, anything that could be used to help work on this issue. So with that, I just wanted to let everyone know, that I am here to be helpful. I'd love to be coordinating with the town more. I know that Mayor Murata and I, with some others in the central Connecticut region, did have one discussion last year with a group. We are kind of meeting, I think, in pockets with legislators around the state and other groups around the state and the state police. But locally here, I would love to be more active in helping the community address this issue. So thank you for having me, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Representative Wood. So that's Commissioner James Ravella.
Yes.
Thank you. Going to questions. Mayor Murata, any questions?
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Carrie. We would love to partner with you, obviously. So it is encouraging to hear the 3 examples that you set up. I'm not so sure about the second one in our role with respect to that. If that's something more that you would be working with the chief. So, I'll leave that at your discretion. But in terms, of seeking consequences, I wonder if it would be helpful if you can sort of explain to folks, now that you've drafted this legislation, what is the process, right? So
Yeah,
does it
that's a
go
really
to a
good question.
committee? Who does it go to? What is your role in that?
So I crafted legislation working with state police and some people in the judiciary system, and then asked, for our local chiefs to just take a look at it. And I think we crafted something that would work well for us. But this is happening across the state. So there are dozens of bills that have been presented to address this. So what I have seen the Judiciary Committee do, so what happens is we all submit bills, and they go to the Judiciary Committee, which is the committee of cognizance for this issue. And the committee has been getting a lot of pressure from all of us to raise our bills. And I know we all think we probably wrote the best bills, but I really don't have any pride of ownership. So I'm sure there's something that may be more encompassing or written better. But they did raise a bill last week that has the word car thefts in the title. So I'm thinking what they're going to do as a next step is take pieces of all the bills that were put forward and put that into their own version of a bill. So as a next step, I tell people all the time, there's, a lot of my neighbors are probably on this call because they're getting hit nightly with people in their neighborhood, is how can we help at the legislative level? The Judiciary Committee is a great committee to just look up on the CJA website. All the members are there, and send them emails. You can share your stories. If you send me an email, I can forward it to the committee. But it's really about putting that pressure on to say, we really need you guys to do something. And I do that, on my own, but it's also good to hear from the public, as well. So if anyone has any questions about that, they can contact me offline or send me an email, and I'm happy to send emails and contact info.
Would
And
you
we
happen?
session from January through June. So I would love to have something tomorrow or have something already be on the books, but this does take a little bit of time for that first point, which is the legislative process.
And then the one bill that was raised that had the word car theft, do you happen to know the reference number, or we can look that
It
up?
doesn't have a bill number yet. It's just an act concerning. So I can
Okay.
send that to everyone over an email, but it was just raised in the committee.
And then the last question, what is the sentiment, do you think, up there?
I'm very frustrated because, in fact, in the last meeting with Commissioner Ravella last Monday, I felt like I lost my cool a little bit because, as you saw, Mayor, we keep on getting hit with this data that this is just something that's happening because of COVID, and here's the car thefts and here's this. And I said, listen, I will give you an example of what's happening in Rocky Hill, which is, people scouting neighborhoods on a nightly basis. Where is that data? People breaking a window. Where is that data? Having a car stolen from Cumberland Farms because someone left their key fob in it, to me, is very different than someone stealing a car by breaking into a garage. Those are two different data points. So stop throwing data at me, and help us address this. Like, we need to change laws now. And, I just feel that this whole, crime has gone down across the board. Well, it has, but crime with property theft and, stealing cars and stuff is spiking. So let's address this issue. And, it's very frustrating, I think, because we all want things to happen overnight, and it just doesn't do that on the legislative level. So, you know, I am waging that battle. I'm screaming from the rooftops on the need for change, and all of us in Central Connecticut are feeling it, just because it's so easy to, you know, perform a crime and then jump on I-91 and take off. So, you know, we're in an area that's really getting hit hard.
Great, well, keep up the fight. Thanks. I'm all set, Deputy Mayor.
Counselor Emmanuel, would you like any questions?
Yeah, just one question. Thanks, Ed. Carrie, you were saying something about budget, and I was thinking about if, regardless of the process, and I know it's a lengthy process for legislation, if there's an immediate need from the police department in terms of more innovative tools, even additional manpower for the next budget, has there been any discussions at the Capitol about supplementing some of the municipalities that are getting hit by this with some additional municipal aid to cover some of these crimes?
It's not related to the crimes, but it's related to the data storage for the dash cam and body cam. The state is looking at providing some dollars to go towards the storage fees. So, you know, it's something, but it's not specific towards this. So that's why if we need to, you know, ask for dollars for a specific piece of equipment or technology or software, I think it'd be upon me to put that into a bonding, you know, request, or even bring it to Commissioner Ravella and see if there's any sort of grants, you know, for our town.
Okay. And I'm sure the police chief is coordinating with other police chiefs and sharing information about best practices to combat this. Are you hearing anything on a broader state level from municipalities that may be using something innovative to tackle some of this?
The license plate readers are what a lot of the cities are using, and they're positioned at places like on and off ramps. And those have been the best, you know, way forward. That way, if someone gets off into the town, it would ping the police department that there's either a stolen vehicle or, you know, and I think that Rocky Hill being right, you know, having 2 exits, that may be something we want to look into.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Ed.
Deputy Mayor, may I ask one more question, because that just, I'm sorry to go into Punkage's time, but I'm sorry, Carrie, I was talking to someone who actually reads the data on those things, right? And they were saying that there's some statute where if you are a municipality of 50,000 or more, you can actually use that data for your tax assessor's office, so that once you have a plate and presuming it's not stolen, you can then run it and see if they owe taxes, and then you can go after that person that way. And some of these municipalities are getting a lot of their tax money back. Is there a way that you could look into that and maybe see if that is in fact true, that's the 50,000, can we maybe get that lowered so that there's opportunity for our smaller towns to use that data similarly?
Yeah, and also maybe that's a reason to regionalize with some of these other towns and say, hey, could we use this policy across, you know, Cromwell, Newington, Weathersfield, Rocky Hill? That's your 50,000 plus.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you so much.
John Mayer, do you have any questions of the state rep? You're muted.
No, I don't have anything at this time.
Councilor Pankaj Prakash?
Yeah, thank you, Representative Butt, for being here today. And, you know, walking us through the legislative process. And just piggybacking on the mayor's question here, I just wanted to kind of, you know, get an assessment of your personal assessment of, like, if you were to put an odds number on that, on the bill passing, or a bill passing, right? There are many out there, but from what you hear in your caucus as well as across the spectrum, what will you say are the odds of a bill passing, whether it's a reconciled bill or like a reconciled version of many bills.
Well, if the Judiciary Committee didn't raise a bill with the word car thefts in the title, I would have said it probably was not going to happen because, you know, we kind of scream and yell that we need change, and then we're being pointed, you know, like a document comes up that says, well, if you look at the data, it's just because of COVID, you know, and that's kind of what we've been battling. Or if people didn't leave their key fob in the car, this wouldn't even be going on. And I think there's evidence that it's not just leaving key fobs in the car. I mean, 100 windshields being smashed in Newington, there's no data point for that, you know, going into, you know, garages and stealing things that, like, we're not, you know, that's not a car theft. That doesn't have to do with a key fob. So I think the pressure is extremely high because there's no community immune. I mean, I was talking to, you know, the chiefs the other day, and Hartford, you know, is the numbers that we have in Rocky Hill, even though one of these is too many, one is more than we should ever have. But if we have, you know, one of these happening a week, I mean, Hartford, it's like 25 a night, you know, so every community is, you know, getting hit. And I think the pressure is tremendous for us to make some change before. What I've been saying is, I don't want something tragic to happen, then we all decide to go in and pass a law. Like, I want to get ahead of this. I don't want to see a tragedy, you know, for us to actually get off our butts and vote on something. So I think that I feel good that the committee actually raised a bill that they're going to draft in-house, and I will be very vocal on what should be in that bill.
Sure, and in the meantime, because the legislative process takes long, and this goes to the question Councilor Emanuel asked, right? Really, is in the short run or the immediate run, what we can do to get some more resources to the town, and, you know, have that collaborative approach with whether it's state police or it's with the commissioner. You know, something immediate we can do, hopefully, to mitigate some of this, right? Because the legislation will take some time, and, you know, it's a long, arduous process, right? For good reason. But in the short run, if we can get to some of those resources, I think that will be fantastic. And this is more of a comment than a question. I know, like, you're working hard on it. We are working hard on it, but I think from outcomes perspective, right? The proof is in the pudding, right? So as soon as we can get some resources and have that collaborative approach in place, I think we can get some results.
Yep, and I'm sorry for everyone that has heard this before, but out of a meeting that we had about a month ago, there was an ask by us to engage the state police on using a helicopter that they own that sits at Brainerd, which we thought sounded great. You know, let's get a helicopter up to help, you know, patrol and, you know, provide backup. The amount of money that it costs to operate the helicopter is just not something that is in the state police budget. And I thought that was a great brainstorming session where someone gave us a great idea of, like, hey, why don't we, you know, explore this? So we did ask the state police, but out of that discussion, we got the state police filling us in that they are working on a drone task force, which would be able to go up and, you know, provide support. And we were talking about having that rotate through the various towns. So they don't have enough where they'd have a drone in every single town, but they would have, you know, one or two up that can probably rotate through the towns, you know, maybe at night to start. So, you know, we are getting further in, you know, information on that. But every time we have these brainstorming meetings on what we can do, I feel like something good comes out of it, and we can move forward. I think the license plate readers, hearing the good work that they're able to do in other communities, you know, I think that might be something we can look at here. But again, I'll leave that up to, you know, Chief Custer, and, you know, to let me know if that's, you know, a direction he wants me to go in, and I can see, you know, what kind of funds we can get.
Absolutely. I think that's a good strategy. I think we'd love to hear from Chief Custer as well, so that we can have some direct input and coming your way there. So thank you. Thanks for taking the time today.
Welcome.
Chief Custer, any questions of the state rep at this moment? You probably have had numerous conversations and are organizing your thoughts anyways on that, but if you had a question now.
Just a comment. First of all, Representative Wood, you've been tremendous in terms of your accessibility and your responsiveness to our needs and our concerns on this issue. And I just want to commend you for that. We've had numerous conversations, and the bill that was proposed, she ran by us for input. So I appreciate all that and the efforts you have made. I will take you up, however, on that offer for grant money. One of the approaches that we've looked at internally to addressing this problem was beefing up our technology. So I certainly would be interested in obtaining some license plate readers for our town. So we've done a little homework. We have some prices. They're not cheap. Okay.
No, they're super expensive.
They are. So what we would be looking at would be portable license plate readers in a mini trailer that we can move around town. And obviously 2 or 3 would be ideal, but just to give you an idea, they're about $40,000 a piece.
Yeah.
Okay. But what that gives you is obviously we can track any stolen vehicles coming in and out of town, and we can do that in real time at dispatch. So let's say we do have one set up in town and we get a hit. There's a good chance that car could be coming into town to commit further criminal acts. So, this would give us the ability to jump on top of that. So I've also looked at real-time cameras like they have in Hartford. Forget it. It jumps from 40 to about 200,000 per unit. So if we could maybe just focus, on the cheaper alternative, the license plate readers, that would be tremendous.
All right, let's talk offline because I would just like to get the budget numbers and then we can take it from there.
Sounds good. That's all I have.
Thanks, Chief. So
Ed, can we keep the police chief as part of this conversation versus waiting until his committee report to ask questions about the crime? Because I just didn't want to lose Carrie, and I have a few questions for the chief regarding this topic.
Yeah, we can. I wanted to just make a quick comment myself.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll wait until you're done.
Thank the state rep for attending and digging into this. The COVID thing keeps coming up, and I would just say we've heard so much from the general public on this, and we've really thought about the COVID. How is COVID really affecting this? It's not. I mean, it's complicated. It's so many things. I mean, so many people are not going with their cars to a secure municipal lot somewhere, a private office building. These crimes are no longer happening somewhere else, right? Why? Because people are working from home and their cars are in their driveway. So in one sense, the lure is in our own driveways, right? And so my concern is just that it seems that we've now made our residences the attack point for these property theft crimes. And I just think that if you go into somebody's garage to steal a car, to go through it, that's a home invasion. I mean, it's not a detached structure in the outback. It's connected to your house. To me, that's a home invasion. And I don't know what you think about that. If you've seen any of that in discussion in committee in your bills or not, but COVID is a complicating factor. And like I said, I think the home invasion issue is raised the ante along with the brandishing of weapons.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And we really don't know if this is just COVID because we're still in the middle of it. And so what the police officers have been telling me is that they don't believe it's necessarily just COVID. They believe it's the juveniles understanding the law, and they finally got it. And they're like, oh, this is great. We can continue to do this without any punishment. Like, let's go on a joyride. I mean, when you think about it, the adrenaline that these kids are getting off doing this every night, it's almost like a drug. Like, they're addicted to this. Like, they're going to keep on doing this unless we actually make some change, at the legislative level. So the home invasion part, I think that was asked on one of the neighborhood calls, and that is interpretation of the law. A home invasion is when you, and please, one of the police officers or chief come in here because I'm not 100% sure, but a home invasion is when you, the intent is to be violent. So when you are in a garage stealing, it would never, you know, under any sort of, you know, court, if, you know, that had trial or anything, it wouldn't be a home invasion. So, but could we strengthen the laws there? Yes, we could.
Sure. Okay. So, John, Councilor Emmanuel, we're scheduled now to open this up to all the folks that are waiting in queue. I think we should get that started.
Yeah, sure. I just want to make one comment, you know, that we have the police chief and Carrie on. When it comes to budget and tools that the police need, I would hope nobody squirms when they hear price tags or anything like that, because there could be a broader issue where it's not just here and now where we're having car thefts. It could be in 2 years or 3 years when we're having arsons around town that we want to track people, or it could be home vandalisms that are chronic around town that we need these tools. So I would hope that people are thinking more broadly, that it's not just a this problem, that it could be future problems too, where these tools will be effective. So that's all I wanted to say, Ed. Thanks.
Great point. So we're going to open up to the public and for public comment, and I will call your name off that I have in chat, and that's how we'll get this rolling. And you have 2 minutes to get a statement on the record. And I think what you'll see is discussion will begin to answer some of those questions, but it won't be, you know, necessarily a direct back and forth dialogue for the essence of time. So we're going to start out. So all these folks did email public meetings at rockyhillct.gov, and that's how they got their credentials. And again, I thank them kindly for taking the interest to do this. And we'll start with Alicia Costanzo.
Hi, Ed. Hi, everyone. So I'm Alicia Castano. I live on Murphy Drive. And my concerns are more of at the local level. I feel like things are just really out of control right now, and we're at the verge of something really bad happening. We already had one incident of somebody taking out a gun on one of my neighbors. And then I'm just afraid that that's just going to escalate. I know that I've witnessed many cars during the day in our neighborhood. It's not just a nighttime. I have a college-age daughter that has been approached by 2 of the cars on Murphy Drive. I've called the police twice on one of them. And, you know, I know that since we had our last neighborhood meeting, the police have stepped up, and I thank you for that. It's nice to see your presence on our street more, but we need more in the daytime as well. Our street is unique to the west end of Rocky Hill. We're like the 2nd or 3rd closest to the highway. It's so easy for people to come through here, and they'll be out of here in about a minute and on the highway. So I just would like to see more of a police presence during the day before something else happens. And, you know, we have a lot of little kids in the neighborhood as well that stand at the bus stops. So, you know, it's just really just out of control. Like, the kids are afraid to go outside. My kids go outside and shoot basketballs, and then there's cars just creeping up the street, going into my cul-de-sac and then leaving. And now they're nervous about every single car, and we don't want to live this way. So, please just continue to patrol. Like I said, you're stepped up and you're doing a better job. And, yeah. And the only other thing I wanted to say is, when a neighbor calls the police, please don't approach the neighbor when the person of concern is still on the street. That happened to me, and that made me very upset that my house was approached while the person was still hanging around. But anyway, thanks for what you're doing, and let's all keep it up as a community, and hopefully we'll get to the bottom of this sooner than later.
Thank you, Alicia Castano. When you get on, just state your address. Unfortunately, that's the way we do it. So you're what's your street address?
47 Murphy.
Thank you. Dylan Shaw.
Yeah, hi everyone. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, you're there.
Okay. Yeah, I just came in. I have
Your,
already
your
said
name
my,
and your address, your name and your address.
yep, Dylan Shah. I live on 17 Kroll Farm Road, Rocky Hill. And the reason I'm here is I have people run through my garage twice. And first time, yeah, it felt like it was all on us. You know, the garage doors were open and cars were unlocked. Since then, we've been very, very careful for 2 months in a row. But that one day we had a small lapse, and I wouldn't say a big lapse. It was just the garage door was open, and within 3 minutes they got into the garage. And the outside, my friend had come here with the car, and his car was locked, and they were able to open it somehow. I got the videos of that. So yeah, my concerns are just as a resident, what we can do when I keep seeing that, okay, there are state laws that are not enough strong enough. But on the other hand, I also feel like maybe we need to make our town less desirable for them in some ways, which is the technology or the license readers and things like that. And so those are some of the things I want to hear about and see if we have some actionable items. When I had gone to the police station with a zip drive, they didn't have even a way to download the zip drive. So, you know, it just seems like some of those basic things need to be there. And so, yeah, those are my concerns, and I'm just here to listen if there are any action items that could happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Up next is Michael Maluzio.
For Kroll Farm Road. I really wanted to just comment on the fact that I can't even have imagined that living in Rocky Hill, there would be the fear that we have in these neighborhoods. And so, you know, I'm here to support the rest of our neighborhood. We have not had an incident yet at our home, but I don't feel like that prevents me from, you know, feeling the same about all of this and the tough situation we're in. So I just encourage everyone that's in power that can make changes here and help through this process legislatively. Please continue to do that. Carrie, thank you for the efforts that you're undertaking. Chief Custer, we don't know each other, but I thank you for the work that you're doing. It has felt, even in this past week, and from what I'm hearing from our neighborhood, that you're patrolling the area more, and we think it's making a difference. So we're grateful for that. Let's keep that up. And I would support, if we're going to invest some funds in things like license plate readers, that we take those things seriously. And, you know, when it's, I don't know how that process would work, but as you all consider that, you've got my support there too. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Everybody's doing great on the time. This amount of time is working perfectly. We're on cue. Next up, please, Denise Connors.
Okay. Hi, thank you, everyone. Denise Connors, 203 Jason Drive. And Jeannie Lavoie here.
From 504 Carlton Lane, Cliffside Condominium.
Cliffside, yes. So we live at Cliffside. I've lived here about 11 years. Jeannie's been here 31 years. We've never seen anything like this. In the past month, our Cliffside sign, which is only about 5 years old and cost over $2,000, has been vandalized 3 times. Cameras in the neighborhood were not able to pick up any one person doing that. You know, the police were called all 3 times, and they responded very quickly. We asked for more patrol, like at the night, night shifts. They weren't able to promise that 100%. So we feel that, more police, I don't know how big the police force is, but maybe more resources would be warranted. The other thing that I want to say is that I saw the last meeting online, but I didn't hear of any, I didn't know about any of this crime. There's a lot of single women in our community, in our complex, a lot of children. I don't want to live in fear. But how can we protect ourselves if we're not aware of these incidents happening? And I don't know, we don't read about them. Yeah, the communication, I don't know how we can get better communication, either between the police and the community or somehow, but we can't protect ourselves, and we can only do so much. So do you want to add anything?
I've been here for 31 years, and fortunately we've never ever have called the police at Cliffside for vandalism, maybe 4 times for medical problems. So all of a sudden I'm living in fear, and I know that I am not the only one. There were many, many, many times where I did not lock my door. Now everything is buttoned up. I have 2 cars. I don't leave the garage door openers in either of them. I make sure that my car left outside is locked. I tell anybody in the community to make sure that their car is locked. Fortunately, we have had no incidents except for our sign, which was completely demolished.
Yeah. And we're not going to put it back up. We don't want to draw attention. It's going to be another target. And again, about just the communication. If we don't hear about this, if we're not aware of the crime, it gives us a false sense of security. And so those are our concerns.
Right.
Denise, who is the young lady alongside you? We have your name, but we don't have hers.
Yeah.
Yes.
My first name's Jean Lavoie at 504 Carlton Lane.
Thank you. Thank you, Jean.
I'm the president of the association, and Denise is a VP of the association. And we just want to protect all 50 unit owners. I care about all of them. I don't want anything to happen to them or to their property. People love living here. We are off the beaten track. Like I said, I live in fear now.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're doing the right thing. Up next is Kristen Casparino.
Hi, I'm Kristen Casparino, 23 Mariana Way. I've spoken to many of you in this meeting before, and to many offline, and I know it was never up to debate as to whether these crimes would escalate. Well, now we know we have. Proof of that is the hijacking that happened at gunpoint on New Britain Avenue yesterday. I've heard many times in conversations of late that it's not if, but when someone's going to get in a situation that, they'll be harmed or cause harm. First it's burglaries in cars all over our street and town, really, stealing cars. Then now they're coming into our garages, and now we're hearing this hijacking at gunpoint. As my neighbor mentioned last week, these people are comfortable entering our homes. And it's likely that they too are armed. And now, like I said, we've just seen that as an example. We just simply cannot have this happening as the norm in our town. Since our last meeting, I've gone from watching my kids outside like a hawk to not wanting to go outside at all. Like this woman was saying, we're buttoned up. My kids are not allowed to go outside. And let's not forget, I just said this before, but the warmer temperatures are coming, and there are going to be more opportunities to run into these people in our very own yards. Friends of mine have told me that they've come within seconds of running into somebody who is committing a crime in their driveway. and they didn't even know it until they looked at their camera footage hours later. So, you know, this is very real. I know you all know this. And I know that the Rocky Hill Police Department has really stepped it up somewhat. And thank you. Since our meeting last week, I think it's a really good start. However, there is so much more that needs to be done. And I'm glad to hear some of your suggestions today. One of the things I just wanted to address that in the past, it was thought that since they were minors, nothing could get done. You know, it's like this catch and release thing, and well, they're minors. I'm glad to see, and as you know, they're not always minors, because 3 adults with a minor were arrested in Newington and Cromwell just this past week. So I think operating under the assumption that they are minors is dangerous. Not making the assumption you are, I'm just saying, I know that thought is out there with the minors and there's nothing that can be done, but there is. And it proves last week with those 3 arrests, they were not minors. So I know the approach to fighting this has to happen at the town and state level, and I hear State Rep Wood's frustrations, and I hope that State Senator Lesser is listening, or somehow hears our concerns here today. And I hope he's taking them very seriously, because crimes that go unpunished will never be the solution for society or for these people who are committing them. You're not helping these kids by letting them go. I certainly don't want to see a minor go to jail for a first-time offense, but having absolutely no consequences is extreme and just not a solution. I'm glad to hear, State Rep Woods, that you are working alongside our law enforcement agencies and listening to their concerns. I do hear that one of their concerns is the police accountability law, and I'm hearing that it does make their job more difficult. So I'd like to hear more about what's being done to fix and roll back some of that law that makes it more difficult for them to do their job. I've read House Bill 6264 for responsible adult penalties and not 5924, but I'd like to know how specifically they plan to address the penalties, where the bill stands in terms of support at the state level, and will they be heard before the end of the legislative session in June? It may have been addressed earlier, but I'd like to know, I'd like to hear that. And also, in light of the rise in crime, do you still see momentum at the state level to increase the age of a minor to the age of 20? I think it should not go without saying, if this is actually something that's being thought to do at the state level, it is an outrageously irresponsible idea. I do hope that you're not on board with this, knowing the issues we're now facing. I look forward to hearing Rocky Hill Police Department, State Rep Woods, and State Senator Lesser on how they are gaining support from their colleagues at the Capitol to roll back these laws that makes it difficult for our police department. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. I'm going to pronounce your last name, Abed. If you pronounce your full name, that would be helpful.
Yes. Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, my name Muafa Abed, A-B-E-D last name, and I live in 185 Stonehill Drive. Okay. My story, it started about the last month. I got hit twice. They came in my driveway, in my cars. Unfortunately, the second time, the cars were open and they took a bunch of keys. I have a business, so I have keys on ongoing basis to my safe to go to the bank and everything like that. So what happened is they have a bunch of keys, maybe my house, included one of them, I think. So I had to go and change all the locks anyway. But, this ordeal just kept in my mind. We are, waiting to see something happen. And what keys do they have? What they're going to do? And one of those keys actually was for a total car. It was an old car. So what I noticed after that, they got the keys. I noticed that suspicious, a lot of cars coming in and looking at my driveway. I noticed it at the end of the last time. When I noticed, I even got a plate number and I called the police and he did not act on it. I mean, he came in, yes, he checked the car and he checked that. He told me this is for an old man that he's doing dog grooming or something like that. But you know what? When I noticed the guy, he was a young Middle Eastern kind of looking. He wasn't an old man. So, you know, what if this car was stolen? You know, why not go and check on that? That's what, you know, and we asking, like, I mean, the police is doing a great job, but sometimes, you know, we can't just say we can't do anything. I mean, the first time is I can't do anything because even if they go to the judge, they consider like a juvenile, and at the end, nothing to be done. I live, like I say, 185, so this is like almost cul-de-sac. You know how hard to come from New Britain Avenue to go all the way, how many stop signs, and they still, you know, it's not close to the highway, but they still come to us. So I have gathered a bunch of videos. I've been sending to the police for these cars. And there is a rumor with the community that these people, they are young, yes, but they're not juvenile, but they come from New Britain. And one of my videos was, you know, recorded as non-English speaker. So there's a clues there. That plate could have been the lead. I think if the police officer pursued that, it could have been the lead to catch all these guys. So I mean, I'm asking, you know, when I call the police, I'm not trying to just, you know, have fun. I'm trying to raise something very, very dangerous. So we have been living in fear. I had to move to a hotel for a whole week because the kids are with them. So what am I going to do? So, and I called the police. I said, you know what? I mean, I'm in fear. What can you do for me? What do you just suggest I can do? And you know, the answer was, if you happy in the hotel, stay in the hotel, or you can, you know, move to another house. That's not the answer I wanted to hear. That's not, you know, that shouldn't be said to me. I mean, I moved to this Rock Hill just where I have 4 kids from 7 to 12 years old. I don't have anybody to help me here. I mean, you know, we start now closing the garages. I'm just saying, it's not a life that we live in right now. So I would appreciate if you want, even you, Mr. Ed. I mean, I have those videos. I was thinking actually to call you and show you the exact. There's something I can say right now. There's something private I wanted to say. Maybe I can just show you those videos and the clues because some community rumors where these people come from. They don't come from Rock Hill or New York or anywhere else. Okay, thank you very much.
Wafa, thank you. And yes, and I think the chief will touch on this in his report, but the footage and the information that you do turn in, keep turning it in. I encourage everybody, keep turning it in. It's mounting up in the police records area. So please do keep that going in.
Thank you.
Sure. Up next is Maria Manella. Okay, we can come back, but Maria's not here. Up next is Tony Nunes. Okay, up next is John Roderick.
Hi, good evening. My name is John Roderick. I live on 137 Whitewood over on the west side in Rocky Hill. First thing I want to say is thanks to our local LEOs for everything they do. During a situation that happened where we actually discovered some of these home invaders and car thieves in our driveway at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning, the police force and everybody involved were very responsive, very quick, very professional, and you know, really did everything they could to try to track the gentleman down. We actually got a photo from my Ring camera that they used, and I believe they actually found them in Newington or East Hartford or something of that nature. At any rate, what I wanted to suggest or comment on or have a question about are regarding something that Kristen mentioned in her statement earlier. What can we do, Representative Wood, Mayor Murata, Ed, at the state level to try to at least partially rescind some of the legislation, the laws in place that are now limiting our LEOs. Through several conversations I've had, not only with our local LEOs, but friends of mine, family members that are in law enforcement in Connecticut, that's a real concern on the limitations and restrictions now placed on them from actually really doing their job the way that they may need to in order to provide some of the services that we require as a community, and that would really help to be a deterrent to some of these activities in our town. My second question is, what can we do to work on some of the laws in place that are fairly restrictive on what we as citizens can do to protect ourselves? Without getting into it too much, we're, as a homeowner, as I think it might have even been Kristen who mentioned this earlier, or even Representative Wood that mentioned this, we are somewhat limited in what we can do to defend our homes and our property. You know, the case that my family experienced, it was very alarming and frightening. My 12-year-old daughter and my wife came out to my wife's car, and there were two gentlemen who had blocked off our driveway and were rifling through my wife's automobile as she was getting ready to take my daughter to school. So as I came out, they took off, and, you know, fortunately we were very lucky not to have a confrontation. But we do know that these folks are armed. We do know that they often have ill intent in play. And, you know, as citizens, we should feel comfortable protecting our families and quite frankly, our property as well, because even though we're an affluent community, you know, not everybody can afford, whether we have insurance or not, to replace a car cavalierly when it's stolen, or, you know, replace items in our house at a moment's notice, especially in lieu of the pandemic. You know, a lot of people are affected by that. So while I appreciate everything our LEOs are doing, I would like to see our citizens enabled more. I know we've been working, various people in town have been working to do some neighborhood watches and collaborate and sort of work together to protect each other and protect ourselves and get information to the police and so forth. But I personally feel that we need to be empowered to protect ourselves as much as possible, and our LEOs need to be allowed to do their jobs effectively. And some of the legislation and laws on the books, I feel, are deterrents to that. And as the gentleman before me, Mr. Abed, had mentioned, and I think it was Denise as well, there's a real fear and fear of going outside, fear of letting your kids play, fear of even just being out in your yard, that somebody may confront you or come across you with some ill intent. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I just at this moment take the opportunity to tell folks, call the police department regarding home defense, right? There's the police will have information on the type of cameras, the things you can do besides locking it. You can turn your car alarms on. So please, home defense, home protection, self-protection, call the police department. They have the resources to talk you through those things. Up next is Gina Oresco.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Gina Oresco from 40 Murphy Drive. And I wanted to say thank you to the police for, first of all, they've definitely had more presence in our neighborhood lately. And it's been noted and people feel a little bit safer, a little bit more hopeful. And we do appreciate that. I actually saw one of the officers and I spoke to him, and I was thinking while I was speaking to him, you know, as a neighborhood, we have the ring apps that we're all hearing all these different crimes. We have text messaging each other that if we know them. Our neighborhood now has the WhatsApp and we're all connected through that, which is great. But I think the police and other residents of Rocky Hill don't know the full extent of what is going on. They don't get all these messages. They're not on the Ring app and on our text messages. So it's such a, I really just think they don't understand how serious it is because they don't know. They're just not in the middle of it like we are. One day I brought my daughter to the bus. The bus came and picked her up. As soon as the bus picked her up, this car came speeding up our street. And the neighbor and I just looked over at the car and we were like, what is going on? We realized it was a police car. He stopped and asked us if we saw such and such a car. My point to this is that my daughter just got on the bus. This was in the morning. You know, this wasn't at night. This was in broad daylight. The buses are out, kids are out, people are out, and they're doing this. They don't care. There's another time where I was sitting in my front room at 5:15 and I saw a car come down with no headlights on and 4 more down at the bottom of our street. The police did come. Unfortunately, the cars had left. But for me to have been in the middle of those 2 incidences were terrifying to me and to my children. My daughter used to ride her bike down to the cul-de-sac. I can't let her do that anymore. I can't let them play in the front yard. I don't feel comfortable. I could, but I don't feel comfortable. Even worried about them at the bus stop, which is literally across the street from my house. So it's very scary, and that's not why people move to Rocky Hill. And I know you hear this over and over again, and that's wonderful that you're hearing it, because I don't think that everyone knows how severe it is. I have had the neighbors down the road been their cars, things have been stolen out of their cars. The neighbors up the road, things have been stolen out of their cars. And on the other streets, things have been stolen right out of their cars. We're all human. Everybody's gonna forget to leave their car unlocked at some point. Our road is an amazing road for easy access to do this type of crime. I mean, it's easy in and easy out. It's kind of like a U. Part of it's a U. We're actually shaped like an H. We're right near the highway. We're on Branch Street where everybody speeds anyways. It is a great neighborhood. So of course it's prime area for people to do this, to try and do this. And I don't care whether the data points, thank you, Carrie, for all the work you've been doing. And I'm very disappointed that they're talking about data points for COVID. It doesn't matter if COVID started this or not, because even if COVID ended, it certainly wouldn't stop it, because they hit the jackpot over and over and over again, because we're all humans. We're all going to make mistakes. And somebody's always going to leave something unlocked, or somebody's always going to be coming and going, and the garage is going to be open for 2 minutes, or someone forgot something in the house and ran back in. Those aren't things that anyone's doing wrong or intentionally. And it's very scary. And I just think we really all need to come together. Our neighborhood has come together to do some things, and we're also working on the town level and again on the state level. So we are trying to do our best as well, and to stay vigilant with locking our homes and our cars. But it's kind of sad when the first thing that my company comes over, if they come over, is, did you lock your car? That's the first thing I say to them. Did you lock your car? And they look at me like I have 10 heads, and I'm like, no, really, did you lock your car? Like, kids can't go outside, neighbors coming over. I'm like, geez, I hope their car doesn't get car thieved while they're visiting, you know? So I'm glad that everyone seems to be stepping up. And so thank you to everybody who is, and hopefully we'll just keep hearing more and more so to inform you guys about how serious this really is.
Gina, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Please stay on, folks, and tune in. The police will be, the chief's report is coming up after all of this, and the chief has things to report. Thank you, Gina. Just circling back, Maria, are you there? Maria Manella?
And she had connection issues. She's trying to come back. I'm sending her a link. She reached out.
Tony Nunes. Okay, we're going to move forward with Jacqueline Farnham. Jacqueline, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, 95 West Street. I'm hearing, I'll try to stick to the 2 minutes. I actually timed this out. I have comments to make, and then I have questions.
Thank you.
You know, if I stop, excuse me?
Thank you.
Okay. I'm hearing everyone's concerns about the current problems with theft and car break-ins, and I share them. And the fear in the neighborhoods, the kids to be afraid to go outside. It's not if, but when. Those are things that I have been living with for 8 years. So I definitely understand how you are feeling right now. I also want to prevent a tragedy, Carrie. And thank you so much, because you are the only one listening to the concerns on the east side. Okay, I hear all the concerns on the west side and that they're being addressed. And I'm happy for all of you that your concerns are being addressed. But ours on the east side are not. So let me start. Have you seen Andy? It's a documentary. I've seen it. You should all see it. Its conclusion is that level 3 sex offender, notorious pedophile Wayne Chapman, who resides at 60 West Street next to Mosier, killed Andy, a 10-year-old boy from Massachusetts. I learned from this film how smart and resourceful Chapman is. He hired lawyers to get him moved out of a treatment facility, only to be moved back there after his conduct proved he was still dangerous. He worked with civil attorneys to get released from jail. He asked if he would be listed as a sex offender on the registry when he was released. The governor of Massachusetts said they released him based on his physical illness and not on his mental capacity. And Massachusetts has now since passed new legislation because of Chapman's release. His release was all over the Boston media. Now he lives in Rocky Hill next to our children. Attorneys for the victims, and there are over 100 victims, are on video saying he will reoffend. He is capable of planning and orchestrating a crime, especially given that pedophiles work in rings and that he now has total freedom and a front row seat to the bus schedules at Mosier. We need you to act now, to do everything possible to get him out and to prevent this from continuing to happen. Wayne Chapman is a murderer and a rapist of children, and he now lives in Rocky Hill across from Mosier School. So I ask you, have you seen Andy? Do you know how many sex offenders reside at 60 West? Do you know how many murderers? Do you know how many criminally insane? Can you confirm for the residents whether these paroled criminals are free to come and go in our community? And finally, can you tell us what you are going to do about it? And please do not misinform residents that they are all infirmed and immobile, because that is blatantly not true. I confirmed this with Mike Landy, eye care director of operations. It is all ages. It is a rehab. And I have been in the long-term care industry for 25 years. I know what goes on in there. So please do not insult my intelligence. I would like the concerns of the east side of town addressed as they are the concerns of the west side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jacqueline. Up next is Charlene Parker.
Hi, good evening. I live at 27 Mariana Way, and I'm Charlene Parker. So first, I just want to say thank you to the police department. We support you. We have lots of family members and friends who are in police enforcement. So I just want to say thank you, and we support you. I also know about the laws that have been enforced that don't allow many of you to do your job, which is very unfortunate when these laws are being passed, because now we're feeling the consequence of these. And in saying that, living in Rocky Hill, my husband grew up in Rocky Hill since elementary school, and I grew up in Wethersfield, and not feeling safe in our neighborhoods and seeing this escalate just since October is pretty concerning, considering I have 3 boys and the neighborhood used to be outside a lot. And even though it's cold, I have boys, they don't like being inside. It's constant looking out the window to see if there's a car coming down the street. Do we know that car? And it's funny because it happened just the other day, because we're all on this What's Up app. And it's like, oh, there's a white vehicle in the neighborhood. And someone's like, it's my nanny. So it's this constant fear of what might be coming, because it's happening not only at night or in the middle of the morning, it's happening throughout. And now it's not feeling safe in our community. You know, one thing I always tell my kids is be aware of your surroundings. It's important to know who's outside. It's important to know, even just stepping out of your car, going to the grocery store, being, aware of your surroundings. Locking our doors, making sure that our garage is always closed. Now we have the apps on our phone, locking our cars in our garage because, we're scared of what's happening. Our story is not as bad as some of everyone else that's been talking. The cameras have shown that they've tried breaking into our truck in our driveway. They tried opening it. It was locked. They jumped back in the car and they took off. If it wasn't our camera that got it, it was one of our neighbors who is just posted in that direction. So we happened to see it. It doesn't mean that we're less violated because we chose to, or we happen to have our doors locked, but we're always making sure before we go to bed that we're locking. The last meeting I did not attend, I did not speak at, but I did listen while it was live. And I'm not sure if there was really a plan outlined to address the issue. Not saying that there's not, I'll just say that, but we did hear about a brochure that was that we could have about car break-ins. We also about a campaign of lock it or lose it. And those are great, but I'm not really sure if that's really addressing the issues in town. We are an easy access. And I'm not just concerned about my neighbors, I'm concerned about the friends down the street, and I'm concerned about people that live across the town. I have a 7th grader, so we have friends throughout the town that not just in this area. This is a problem, and I know it's not just a problem in Rocky Hill, it's a problem across the state. And I'm not really sure if it's the COVID that is causing this. I might have to disagree with that. I think it's more of the Accountability Act that was possibly passed. Just doing some research on my end, because now it's on my front doorstep, looking at how the police cannot no longer pursue if it's property theft or auto theft, unless it's a violent felony. That's a problem. So I think those who are addressing other bills to get pushed through and looking at the penalties for the juveniles, because, the juvenile reform laws, having no consequences, we all know you can continue a behavior. So I am just concerned about what's happening in Rocky Hill and being a resident here. My husband growing up here, we've seen definitely a change, and society is changing. Therefore, I think we need to change with it and make sure that we're addressing the needs of this town and making sure that we feel safe and letting our kids back outside, because the warm weather is going to come. And that paranoia it's not a fun one to have, that I can say. So thank you for allowing me to talk.
Charlene, thank you. Up next is Grace Lucier. And it looks like Bob Scotty's speaking for Grace, but he doesn't have he's not unmuted. Bob, keep trying to get your voice. When you do, we'll let you come in. I'm going to move to Deanna Drapo.
Hi there, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
Thank you for taking the time to hear me. I have to admit, I'm a little terrified, having just learned what I learned from Jacqueline Farnan. This is a scary world we're living in. Like many others on the call, I come to you today to express my concerns around the public safety of Rocky Hill and all of its citizens, both west and east. My husband and I have lived in Rocky Hill since 2002. We built a house here over on Winding Brook, and then we built again over in Mariana Way in 2012. And we did this because we loved Rocky Hill and we love the community. It was a safe place to start our family and raise our children, and that's what we were hoping to continue with. We moved over here onto Mariana Way because there were so many kids our son's age and that lived in the neighborhood, both here and over on Murphy. And we wanted that for him and our daughter as well, who came in 2014. The kids just ran the neighborhood, house to house. Parents were just texting each other to let them know, tag, you're it. So keep an eye on them. But now with the kids, there's probably 30 of them in the neighborhood now, and the streets are getting quiet. They're quiet because in the last few years, and most recently in the last 6 or 8 months, crime in our area and all over Rocky Hill has increased. I myself was a victim as well. Our vehicles, they're getting ransacked, they're getting robbed. They're not just in our driveways, they're entering our garages, and some with weapons, as you know, over on Murphy. We're living in fear. And I mean, I don't sleep at night thinking of what might have happened if one of my children, my 14-year-old, my 6-year-old, went out into the garage to get a drink out of the refrigerator and they were standing there. They shouldn't have to face something like that. We're being told to lock it or lose it. We're being told that leaving our garage doors open or our cars unlocked are provoking this crime. And it's making it feel like it's our fault, like we're committing a crime, and it's not. We moved here to live in a safe community and we don't feel safe anymore. With spring around the corner, like many of my neighbors, we love to sit outside in our backyards and enjoy the weather. And our kids go back and forth from the pool to the basketball, and then they go off to play manhunt, and they leave the garage door open because that's where they're getting their balls. And what are we going to do? In walks these criminals, and they're so bold. By this time, they've passed our vehicles and they're walking into our homes. Now what? Nothing, because they get to take what they want. They're minors, they can't be arrested. Or, like you said earlier, it's not a home invasion because they're not intending to hurt us. Well, how do we know that? We don't know that. And if we try to protect ourselves, our homes, our families, we're liable. We're charged. I mean, I'm assuming that, you know, the courts won't be full when it comes to somebody like myself or my husband who might have defended ourselves some way, hurt that minor, and now we're rolling it up really quickly in those systems. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I feel like we really, really need a change. We're discouraged with the no pursuit laws. Why can an officer chase someone that's speeding, but they can't pursue somebody who has stolen property? Why did these minors get off with a warrant to appear in court and not arrested and held accountable? We're taking matters into our own hands now, and while we're acting within the confines of the law, we're still scared because it continues to get worse, not better. We've created Community Watch with WhatsApp to inform our neighbors of any unrecognized or unmarked vehicles coming through the neighborhood. We don't let our kids go outside to play by themselves. They can't even go sledding unless we're out there. And many of us are working full-time jobs and can't be out there watching our children 24/7. We're taking self-defense courses. We're installing cameras. We have timers on our garage, but they got in and out of my driveway in 36 seconds, in and out of the car. We're setting our alarms when we're sitting in the houses, sitting in our houses, because we're afraid they're just going to come right through. We've requested and seen an increase of police presence in this last week, and we thank you guys for that. We hope that's going to continue. It needs to continue. We want our neighborhoods to get louder, but not with flashing lights and sirens. We want the echoes of our children's innocent voices back out there. We deserve that as a community. We deserve that all across Rocky Hill and our neighbors in our surrounding towns. And I just appreciate the focus on this matter and working to help that safety in our community be met. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Appreciate that. Bob Scotty, Grace Lucier. You're no voice, Bob. Okay. I'll just say that Grace Lucier and Bob Scotty were one of the first. Jennifer Way is where they have a homeowners association, and they provided some of the early footage in the early months of this uptick in car theft, and they watch folks case their driveways nightly, and so we appreciate that. Maria Manello, excuse me, or Tony Nunes. Okay, that wraps up our public comment section. We're going to move to department updates, but I think we'll start with police so that we can keep the continuity of that. And certainly Representative Kerry Wood, open mic, please feel free, but we'll start out with Chief Custer.
Okay, thank you, Ed. So how you want to do this? You want to go through the normal format, or do you just want me to go into comment on some of the stuff we've heard tonight?
Yeah, if you go into comment on some of the stuff we heard tonight, folks really invested their time. That would be helpful. And I think you've got maybe an assertive policing program with some bullet points. If we could get those out there.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone who came on tonight. to express your feelings about what's been going on. It truly is appreciated. You may think that as police, we don't want to hear this, or, you know, we feel like we're being criticized. That's not the case. We appreciate this feedback, and it's when we join together that we can get things accomplished. So, you know, I appreciate the comments tonight. I've taken several notes. I was on the other night too, I might add, when citizens were making comments. Let me just express it this way. We're terribly disappointed ourselves as police officers and members of this community. We're very frustrated. There's a lot of moving parts here. But let me say this, you know, I look at this problem as occurring on 3 different levels. And the mayor has kind of touched on this in some of her comments. The state level, what we as a town and a community can do, and then what the police department can do as well. So as far as the state level, there's only so much we can do. There needs to be some rollback on some of these juvenile reform laws, no question about it. I'm not going to get deep into that right now, but I feel passionate about that. And I'm also going to add, Carrie, I think the courts have to step up. I think they've kind of gone into semi-action mode here since COVID. And I think, you know, when we talk about changes with the state, I think the courts have to be a part of that, not just changing of law, but some of the decisions we see coming out of the courts. Again, there's only so much we can do to affect that. So let me move to the next level, which is the community. And one of the things I did pick up on listening to comments the last couple of weeks was there's been more incidents in town than we were aware of. And that was because people weren't reporting these incidents. So the first thing I implore all of you to do is when you do have an incident where you're a victim, please call us, even if you think there's nothing we can do. At the very least, we need to document these incidents so we can start tracking them. And there's always the possibility and the potential that we can solve an incident later on down the road. But if we don't know about it, there's not much we can do. So please don't hesitate to call us when any of these acts do occur and you are a victim of a crime. Also, don't be afraid to call if you see something suspicious. That's another piece here that would be, you know, tremendously helpful to us. I know that we did get one caller from the neighborhood who was upset because they felt they were being questioned by the dispatcher because they were reporting a suspicious vehicle. We're going to ask basic questions for officer safety standards. So it's not like we're questioning you as to why do you think this is suspicious. We just need to have certain information before we send the officers out there from an officer safety standpoint. But if in fact you call and you have information relating to anything similar to that, we are going to respond. So continue to do that as well, please. The other thing is, I know it sounds simple, but we've been harping this for years now. Simply locking your car and keeping valuables out of sight in the cars will help us tremendously in reducing these types of crime. I had this discussion with the town manager, and he said it perfect. He goes, where do the sharks go? They go where the seals are. And every time they go into your neighborhood and they find an unlocked car, a garage door open, or valuables left in cars that are stolen, they're going to be back. And they're going to be back until the seals are gone. And then they're going to move on. So from a community perspective, you would help us tremendously if you could adhere to that. I know we have to change our behavior. I know it shouldn't be the case, but the reality is times are changing. All right. I hear a lot of you saying, you know, Rocky Hill has changed and, you know, and you feel fearful. I get it. We get it. Let's make no mistake about it. This is still a tremendous community and it's still very safe in comparison to other communities in the state and across the country. But the fact is reality is setting in and we don't live in a bubble and we have to face that reality. And part of the way we can do that is by changing some of our behaviors and blocking and discouraging these individuals from coming back into our town. Okay, so that's the state level. I've addressed the local level. What can we do as a police department? So I just want to outline some of the things we've put in place to address this. One of which has already been mentioned by many residents. we have beefed up our patrols. And we are incurring overtime as a result of it, but that's okay. We're all in agreement, it needs to be done. So we have stepped up our patrols at the times where we've had a lot of these incidents occurring. However, there is no real pattern as of yet. They've been happening during the day, in the evening, and the early morning hours. So we're trying to take that in consideration. But the patrols have been increased, additional patrols on top of what we normally have. Another thing that you're going to be seeing is we're going to step up some of our motor vehicle activity in motor vehicle stops in town. That was rolled back somewhat because of COVID. That was actually a recommendation that came down from the CDC that, you know, reduce contact, etc. We feel at this point in time, we can kind of resort back to our normal behaviors. So you will see more of that in the community. And the benefit of that is it creates, at least in my opinion, a deterrent effect when people come into town and they see the police are being more visible and motor vehicle stops are occurring. So that's going to be another strategy we've started to implement recently as well. We've also increased our intelligence efforts. We've recently joined up with the Hartford Intelligence Center out of HPD. And so we're sharing information, and we're getting information out of Hartford, partly in part because a lot of the players that have been involved in this are from the larger cities. New Britain was mentioned. That is certainly one community. Hartford, New Haven, we've had them in from Waterbury. So any information and exchange of intelligence we can have with the cities will be helpful for us, we feel. So we started networking with HPD. We're also forming, we've had for many years, a 5-town collaborative: Rocky Hill, Weathersfield, Newington, Cromwell, Berlin. We call the 5-town initiative Midstate, and we've looked at regionalization and pooling resources, not only in the police department with those 5 towns, but in all forms of government. But specifically with the police department, I meet with those 4 other chiefs every month. We discuss issues that are going on, not only in law enforcement, but in our communities. This has been a hot topic for us for well over a year. And we've just recently decided to engage in a new task force, an auto theft, auto task force, if you will. We're each going to have a member from each agency on that task force. They've actually formed in their meeting tomorrow, their first meeting. And what we're going to do is we're going to start tracking these things in our communities, because the players that are in our town are probably the same players that are hitting Newington, that are hitting Cromwell. So the more intelligence and information we can get on them to do our part is going to benefit us. And that's exactly what we're going to do: collect information, exchange intelligence, and that's going to be disseminated to the officers in all 5 of those departments on a weekly basis, all right, in conjunction with whatever we pick up out of C4, which is HPD's Intelligence Center. All right, a couple other things. In addition to that, we have engaged in DNA swabbing for any vehicles that are involved in town, whether it was a vehicle that was left by the bad guys that was stolen from another town, or a vehicle that's stolen out of this town. There's very few departments that are doing that. Rocky Hill is one of them. We've trained our officers. They're doing DNA swabs of the cars whenever we recover them. And we are submitting those DNA samples to the state lab, and they have agreed to accept them. So we've been doing that for a while now. The only problem with that is we have a lot of unknown hits coming back. We suspect it's because it's a juvenile. Juveniles can't be DNA swabbed. So Carrie, that might be something we want to look into later on. I don't know. I know it's a sensitive area, but we have one DNA sample that's come up multiple times. So this individual has been very active in our town. We suspect it's a juvenile because there's nothing on the database. We mentioned the LPR trailers. This is something we really would like to see. Again, we know there's some cost involved. They're about 40 grand a unit. But having them on a trailer platform would allow us to move them in different parts of town. It will allow us to track in real time any stolen motor vehicles coming into town, unregistered vehicles, wanted vehicles, and it also has the capability for photographs through a camera. It's a good starting point. I think technology is going to be needed going forward with these laws in order to catch these guys. So, maybe, between the town and maybe grabbing some grants from the state, that would be fantastic and helpful to us. And last but not least, it's not been a secret that I believe the police force has been somewhat undermanned. We're basically operating at staffing levels that haven't really changed since the 1980s. And yes, I said that correct, since the 1980s. And we all know the town has grown since the 1980s. We did pick up 2 additional officers, but they went into the schools at SROs. I completely support that. But I think it's time we have to take a look at beefing up the patrol ranks. So I've already had discussions with the town manager and the mayor about increasing staffing levels. We're going into budget season now. I will be asking for 2 new additional officers. If I get that, I can increase our evening and midnight shift by 1, which would be a tremendous help. I don't think it's going to be a panacea to everything that's been happening, but the more presence we have out there, I think the better. So basically, I think that covers everything that I wanted to address. Ed, what would you like next from me? You're on mute.
Chief, I think Ed is having technical difficulties.
Okay.
I think he was frozen.
Yeah, am I back?
You're back now, you're back. Okay.
Chief, if you could do your normal report numbers real quick, some of the numbers, and then we'll let counselors have questions.
Okay. Do you want me to go to monthly activity, or you just want to refer to your handout?
Monthly activity.
Okay. So for the month of January, we received 2,946 calls for service for the month. We had 14 criminal arrests during the month of January. We investigated 33 motor vehicle accidents. And we had 207 hours of training hours for our personnel. Our staffing situation right now is presently we have 1 officer vacancy that we're in the process of filling. We're doing a background investigation on a candidate right now. He should be completed by March, so we're hopeful to bring him on board by mid to end of March, which would bring us to full authorized staffing. We have been short, but this will bring us up to our present allowed capacity. We also have 1 officer in the Municipal Police Academy. He will be graduating next month and coming back to start his field training. We have 5 officers presently in field training, so they're not on their own as of yet, but they're getting very close. 2 of them will be ready in 2 weeks, and the other 3 should be ready by the end of March. So again, this will help the staffing, but again, we still need those 2 officers. And we do have 2 officers out on leave, 1 related to COVID and 1 related to non-work minor surgery. Since we've been talking about stolen motor vehicles, we did have 5 stolen motor vehicles out of town for the month of January. And we had 7 vehicles that had thefts from motor vehicles for the month. So that's all I have.
Counselor Emmanuel, questions for the chief?
I had a few, but Chief, you did an outstanding job with your presentation, and that covered a lot of my questions. The only outstanding one would be, well, actually, regarding the car thefts and everything, how long, if you didn't have any budget constraints, how long would it take to get those 2 or 3 trailer readers?
Well, we were actually in contact with the dealer today. I would just have to check. I don't know if they have to be custom made or there's something that they have ready and it's just a matter of shipping them out to us. And then they have to, obviously they have to dial into our servers and network system. So it's fed into dispatch. I could get a timeline for you for the next meeting, but our sense of speaking with them, this is one of the products that they offered. They could get it out here fairly quickly.
Okay.
Joe Phelps is on, Patrol Commander. Joe, do you have anything more to that? Because I know you were on the phone.
I think they'd have to be built. So depending on what we had added to it, they're coming out of North Carolina if we go with the same company. So I would have to find out.
Okay.
And any thoughts, Chief, on a local drone? You know, if a patrol car has one in the trunk that they can just launch for 20 minutes over a certain area while they're doing a traffic post or something?
You know, drones have limitations, and I'm not even quite sure what the state police were envisioning when they talked about a drone unit. I wouldn't be averse to it, but the problem, John, is you have to be licensed to fly these things. And from my understanding, talking, and Mike Gare, he might have some info on this. There's somebody actually in the fire department that is licensed to fly one of these. It's several man hours, believe it or not, and there's a lot of training that goes along with that. So I would certainly be open to it. I just don't know how feasible it is.
Okay, thank you. And finally, any thoughts on the questions from Jackie Farnham on 60 West Street regarding some of the inmates, any causes for concern? You can't supply specific numbers on patients, correct?
In terms of what?
What their offense was?
If they're a registered sex offender, then yes, we get all the data related to that. Their normal population, we wouldn't, but for a sex offender, we would.
Okay, all right. So I think any concerning questions that she has is more legislative to prevent people like that latest one from coming in the first place, rather than trying to deal with it currently, right?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I think it was last meeting meeting before that, we talked about this at Public Safety because we were aware this one particular gentleman that she mentioned was coming. And everything she stated about him is spot on, and in the history and so forth. But the reality is, and I know we don't want to hear it, is at this point, he's a free man. And I have been informed from the facility also that he is non-ambulatory. So according to them, he can't even, when he goes to a medical appointment, it takes 3 people to get him into a car. So, I'm not sure how capable he would be at this point in his life to carry out any further acts, but we have to be respectful of his rights. And you're right, it would begin before they even get here, more with the legislative process.
Okay, thanks very much, Chief.
Thanks, John. Councilor Prakash?
Yes, thank you, Ed. Thank you, Chief, for a detailed report here. Thanks for taking the time for being here, and also taking the time to for putting together a comprehensive list of things which you can proactively pursue and do in the time we are looking at legislation and things like that. So I have a bunch of questions for you. Some of them are clarifications, some of them are just questions. Some of them are kind of quick ones. So I would like you to start with some clarification of what the pursuit policy is, because there is a lot of talk here, a lot of residents here have mentioned the pursuit policy of pertaining to juveniles or pertaining to just property crime in general. I don't want to make it specific to juveniles, but if you can talk about it in more general terms, how do you approach when a call gets into the station and officers are dispatched? What is the policy after that in terms of pursuit and everything else that comes with that?
The statute itself is not specific to adults or juveniles. It's specific to crime committed. Okay. And it's very clear that police are restricted from pursuing any vehicle that's involved solely in a property crime. Pretty much, statute is clear in stating that we can only pursue in situations where it's a violent crime, generally a violent felony. Doesn't matter if it's a child or juvenile, I should say, or an adult. That's not what gauges the police response. That's not what triggers the law. It's the actual crime that drives that. And if it's a property crime, we cannot pursue.
So, there is nothing like a preventative, measure you can take, because to some of the residents' point here, you don't know if it's going to turn violent or not, or if it's going to become a home invasion or not. Most people can't foresee that, right? I would say none of us can foresee that, really, I should say. But even if you're a professional and you have certain training to kind of, ascertain that, right? Then, you can make some judgments. But for a resident out there like me, I don't know if it's going to turn violent or not. So it's kind of like a chicken and egg situation here. Like, I don't understand, like, how you're able to ascertain that it's going to turn violent or not. It's going to be what kind of crime it's going to be until it's committed.
It's all going to depend on the information that comes in at the time, and it's going to depend on the information that's shared with the officers who are responding to the call. And if the reality is, if the call is somebody's rummaging through my car and the police pull up and they actually get a visual on them, we're going to try to apprehend them. But if they jump into the car and they drive off, just based on that limited information and observations, we cannot pursue them.
Okay, and in the same way, and this is
Your
like
finger still over it? Your finger over it.
these are related questions. So
How did I do that?
Another question, somebody has an open mic here, I think.
That's Grace Lucier and Bob Scotty.
Am I there? Yes.
You are in for, if you hold on, we'll give you public comment in just a minute. Don't touch don't touch your dial.
I won't.
So going back to my question, Chief,
it's good.
The related question I had was, if somebody, because one of the residents mentioned this, if somebody gives you a license plate number, what is the process after that? What does the PD do with that information?
If they get a full license plate number, they're going to run that into the collect and NCIC system, all right, to determine who the registered owner is and any related information to the vehicle. One of the problems we're having in these crimes is they're using stolen motor vehicles to commit these acts. So the majority of time when we can get a full plate and we're running it, if it comes back stolen, we don't know who's in the car. If it comes back to a legitimate registered owner, we can always trace them down. We can find out who was driving the car and we can pursue it that way. But the problem, Pankaj, is they're using stolen cars to commit these acts.
Yes, absolutely. But we can keep our guard up, obviously, keep reporting to you if we find information like that, if you have cameras around. Another question, Chief, I have for you is, in the spirit of solutions, right? We have talked about LPRs and the budget and some funding, which Representative Wood has talked about. How about, and this is like, I'm just curious about this. Do we have any LPRs at the department right now?
We do. We have two that are mounted on cruisers, so they're pretty fixed units, and they're only being used when those officers are driving that car. So the trailer platform would give us the ability for 24/7 and to move into different parts of town.
Right, and I was wondering if we can use them more creatively in the situation we are right now. We don't have enough to put them everywhere, but I was wondering, in the spirit of finding solutions and outcomes that can be positive for the community, if we can have a strategy to deploy them more creatively. Again, they're not enough probably, but those can probably go a long way, at least to get started, right?
I will tell you, we looked into it. The 2 units that we have are approaching, and Lieutenant Phelps can correct me, it might be longer, approaching 10 years of age. We got them 10 years ago on a grant, and the company said, unfortunately, you know, they're not on warranty. They don't even make the parts to repair them if they break. So we're going to keep using them on the cars until they die. But they wouldn't work for the trailer idea that we had. So we did look into it.
No, thank you for that. And then the second part B of that question is, do we have to wait for the funding from the state? Can't we buy some of the, as expensive they are? I'm sure we have a $98 million budget, right? If I'm not wrong, and somebody can correct me. Alan Greenspan is not here. He would have corrected me if it's not 98 million. But we have a big budget. Let's say that, right? I'm sure like we can afford a few $1,000s to buy those LPRs and then get reimbursed by the state if it comes to that.
That's certainly a possibility. I mean, budget's coming and might be a capital item you want to consider.
Absolutely.
Don't forget the 2 cops, though.
Not at all, Chief. You would never let me forget that, right? So on that note, there are a couple of things I wanted to ask you about traffic stops and traffic tickets, right? I know you mentioned that they have been slowed down for some time because of COVID, right? Is there a way we can track those going forward, right? You know, you have been, you know, Lieutenant Phelps and you have been very supportive of looking at this long-term data we look at for the last couple of years. We have been here, 1.5 at least. So if we can make that part of our report going forward, I think that will help a lot as well. And my concern here is to like get that visibility up, and part of that is you know, just having more of a deterrent, like you talked about, right? So it works in both ways, in my view, in my limited you know, civilian opinion. I think just omnipresence and more activity, police activity, right, can be a deterrent, right? And again, I'm no expert, so you can feel free to like challenge me on that. But I feel like those 2 things can help us get us, you know, a little bit further than where we are. So more police presence. And on that note, another thing I wanted to mention is like, right now it feels to me that cop cars are built to kind of blend in, right? Wouldn't we be better to like actually have them a little more visible out there? And again, I will leave it up to you. It's an operational thing. I'm no expert again, but I feel like there can be more visible presence of those cop cars out there, apart from actual enforcement, which is, you know, the part of it.
I agree with you 100%. That's part of the strategy, the omnipresence that you talked about. So you're going to see a lot more cars driving around with their cruise lights on and, you know, being more visible on the main arteries in town. Absolutely.
And actually, this is one last question I have for also. This will be a happy question for you about personnel, right? About the 2 cops. Right now, in terms of staffing, right? Do you have any capacity to move people around? Because I know you're not at full strength. You need 2 more people. But in terms of in terms of like, let me put it this way, in terms of optimizing our resource allocation, right? We do it every day. Like, you know, we all have day jobs. We work. We prioritize, right? In the spirit of prioritization, can you move some of your officers, let's say a sergeant, to patrol for a little while you have those backup resources? Is that a fair way to put it?
Absolutely. And I will tell you, we do it all the time. And I've been doing it pretty much nonstop for the last 6 months, putting sergeants out on patrol in districts, sergeants as field training officers, pulling detectives from their assignments to uniform patrol. Uniform patrol will always be first priority, all right? And the others will serve to support the patrol division. So we do it all the time. As a matter of fact, I had 2 lieutenants out today for several hours doing some surveillance who would normally be inside in their offices. Everyone's pulling together. So yes, we do that and we do the best we can, but we do need a little increase in staffing. It would be helpful.
I hear you, Chief. Thank you so much for answering my questions, and thank you for all your support in terms of being proactive here. And we hope we get to some positive outcomes here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Chief, I'm glad to hear that some of the senior staff are on patrol, because I do worry about the setups, the stages, the baiting into difficult situations that I know you guys have experienced. But it would be comforting to know that that those in the leadership role are on patrol and helping those guys come along in their ability to police the streets. Bob, Scotty, Grace here. You've got exactly just 2 minutes.
Okay.
Minus a minute. Go.
Well, Ed, somehow I didn't get your link, and Grace got the link and sent it to me, and I cut her out. So she's not here. She's still at home, I guess, trying to get in. But anyways, I want to say it's been 8 months that we've started this way back in the summer, talking about all these break-ins and things like that. I have notified the neighbors who love to keep their garage doors open till late at night, love to keep the front doors open with just their screen or their glass in, and try to tell them that, we're in a different situation, so to keep buttoning everything up. I know Grace was going to say something about there is another car again that's been going around our neighborhood early in the morning around 2 a.m. And it's a dark car, and I didn't get all the information. She was supposed to speak tonight. So if I get it, I will give you a call, or I'll give the police chief a call if we get anything more. But again, thank you, the police chief, the mayor, Kerry Woods, that we started with way back this summer, trying to figure out what to do. And hopefully all this new legislation can get passed and we can get these kids off the streets. And is there anything else I can do?
Keep doing what you're doing. Send us the footage. Your footage was some of the earliest. If Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jennifer Way was some of the earlier footage that we had. And it also points out that this isn't just one neighborhood on any geographical side of the town. We're well represented from around the town here, unfortunately. So thanks for cluing in. We're going to jump over to fire for a quick stat report at this juncture.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Ed. First, just like to say something to Mike Custer. Mike, I know how hard you guys work out there, and any help, I know I've said this to you privately, I'm saying it to you publicly, any help the fire department can give you, please don't hesitate to call and ask.
Thank you.
One of the deputy chiefs put together a drone proposal. It's more of an interoperability proposal, but I'll forward that over to you. You take a look at it and we can have a discussion on it. Real quick on the stats. Incidents in January were 53, just the same amount in January of 2020. Training hours recorded were 135, which were lower than 2020, as we are on online training for the next couple months. And those 135 hours are specialty training hours, whether it be special rescue hours, fire service instructor, along those lines. Staffing, we have 70 active at this point. We picked up 3 new members, all in the same family in January. And we have 2 members out on FMLA, 1 military leave of absence, and 1 medical leave of absence. As for our quick manpower analysis, of the 53 calls, we had an average attendance of a little over 18 for a total of 955. Our average length of call was 3/4 of an hour, and some going longer, some going shorter, but comes out to total man hours of just shy of 675 for the month. And that was a quick stat report, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Well done, Chief. Ambulance, Joe Gray.
Good evening, everybody. For the month of January, we had 367 ambulance calls in town. My staffing remains good at 78. We have 2 other people that are in the selection process of coming in, getting their backgrounds done. And we've had a bunch of mandatory training that's been completed. Other than that, everybody's doing well and staying healthy, so we have no issues.
Thank you, sir. Emergency management, James.
Good evening. In the last month, I completed a citizen emergency response team trainers course. So when we move forward with our CERT team, we can do in-house training. I also completed the incident command trainers course, so I can train 6 different classes in incident command across our public safety agencies. The emergency management performance grant was approved by the finance committee on February 11th. And I believe it's on the agenda tonight for the town council for a resolution to have that approved. The snowstorm on February 1st, a detailed plan was written in response to the storm, and the summary is completed and sent out on February 5th. There were no significant issues during the storm, and we continue to maintain operational and situational awareness in regards to winter weather and potential hazards or complications. So our weekly EOC meetings in response to the COVID continue with all public safety agencies, human services, health district, town manager, and the mayor. And the vaccination clinic is set for Saturday, February 20th, and then Saturday, February 27th for Rock Hill citizens in the category of 65 and older. The second vaccine will be distributed in March, and the plan for the clinic will be released tomorrow after working with the Health District, Human Services, and the Board of Education. And that's what I have for my report.
Thank you. And then just very quickly on the wrap up, counselors, you need any questions of those reports? Counselor Manuel?
No, all set.
Counselor Prakash?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.